Whether it was down to the fact that it seemed as though nobody wanted to work with them after a high-profile misfire, or simply feeling as though they'd been found out as actors after one rather disappointing showing. The following stars very much felt as though their time in the spotlight was over at these precise moments in time. Gareth here from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 exact moments actors thought they were finished. Number 10. Matt Damon's career was going downhill before being offered The Informant. As hard as it may be to believe, Matt Damon's career was actually in a little bit of trouble in the early 2000s. According to the star himself during a Hot Ones interview, before being offered the lead role in Steven Soderbergh's The Informant, his career was very much heading in the wrong direction. At the time of chatting with the talented director, Damon's eventual hit Bourne series hadn't been released in cinemas, and the star had been at the center of a number of big screen bombs. And the actor was actually so convinced that nobody would be willing to give him a job at the time of chatting with Soderbergh that he didn't even realize he was being offered the part by his eventual director. So after double checking if he was merely being brought on board to write the script, and being told that Steven most definitely just wanted him to star in the comedy crime flick, Damon was all in. And while it may have taken nearly a decade for the two to actually unleash The Informant into the world, by the time it was, Damon was a rather bankable Hollywood star, and the feature went on to earn some pretty decent reviews too. Number 9. Margot Robbie questioned if she wanted to continue after Wolf of Wall Street. Few will ever forget the mesmerizing performance that introduced Margot Robbie to the majority of the movie-watching world, with her stellar work as Naomi LaPaglia in Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street, quickly establishing her as one of the biggest stars on the planet, seemingly overnight. But with such a sudden injection of fame came the realization very quickly that things may never be the same for the actor if she decided to fully commit to the life of a Hollywood superstar. In fact, in the wake of The Wolf of Wall Street's release, the star eventually admitted to Variety that she told her own mother, "I don't think I want to do this," after feeling as though her family could be in danger, due to the public's desperate need to catch a photo of her doing her grocery shopping, for example. Instead of finishing her mainstream career before it properly got going though, the Australian sensation soon realized that the only way was forward, and went about forging one hell of a big screen CV in the years that would follow. Number 8. Nobody wanted to work with Natalie Portman after Star Wars. In the case of the unquestionably brilliant Natalie Portman, her performance as the rather dull Padme Amidala in Star Wars episodes 1 to 3 didn't do her many favors by the time Revenge of the Sith finally closed out the trilogy in 2005. The eventual Oscar winner would explain to New York Magazine many years on from her disappointing time in the galaxy far, far away that despite appearing in the highest grossing movie of the decade, no director wanted to work with the star of The Wars. Portman would even confess that she felt as though everyone thought I was a horrible actress. Instead of her hopes of going on to enjoy a varied and long career being crushed by an underwhelming showing in Star Wars though, Portman had a friend in director Mike Nichols, who went out of his way to vouch for her to his peers and helped rebuild the star's reputation along the way. Yeah, she did pretty alright for herself, didn't she? Number 7. Adam Sandler didn't know what to do after being fired from SNL. There's no getting around it, getting fired utterly sucks, doesn't it? And after spending 5 solid years providing many a laugh as part of the Saturday Night Live cast, Adam Sandler soon found himself feeling the sudden sting of unemployment in 1995. After being dealt such a heartbreaking blow at a rather early stage in his career as an on-screen comedy actor, Sandler, who was 28 at the time of his exit, ultimately admitted to feeling hurt because I didn't know what else I was gonna do. Simply put, the star didn't feel like he was ready to leave behind the SNL team, and the idea of now having to do something else with his time was likely a little terrifying at the time. It all worked out in the end, of course, with Sandler going on to become one of the most successful comedy actors of all time. And when he did eventually return to host SNL in 2019, he unquestionably got the last laugh with his cheeky lyrics of, I was fired, NBC said that I was done, then I made over $4 billion at the box office, so I guess you could say I won." Number 6. Chris Hemsworth thought his improv skills would end his career in Ghostbusters. For those who don't feel all that confident about the concept of riffing on the spot during a scene, the reality of walking onto a set without any scripted dialogue to fall back on can be fairly daunting. And that was the terrifying situation Chris Hemsworth found himself in during the shooting of the eventual comedy reboot flop that was 2016's Ghostbusters. And after having a chat with director Paul Feig about the alarming lack of lines his character had printed in the script he'd been sent, the star was told not to worry about it because they'd simply figure it out on the day. But when said day actually arrived, the horrifying realization that he'd have to now attempt to improvise his way through a sequence with his co-stars left him thinking, this is not only the end of my career, but I'm going to ruin this film. In the end though, the support he felt from the likes of Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig helped him feel comfortable enough to have fun with the scenes he was involved in. And while this particular Ghostbusters adventure may not have set the world on fire, Hemsworth's career showed absolutely no signs of slowing down after yet another fine example of his comedy prowess. Number 5, Paul Bettany was told his career was over before getting a Vision phone call. Getting that all-important call from Kevin Feige or another Marvel creative has been known to be a life-changer for just about every actor who has ever wandered into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But when it comes to eventual Vision star Paul Bettany, it genuinely seemed as though his days as part of the acting industry were well and truly over before his phone rang with Avengers Age of Ultron director Joss Whedon's number on it. As the voice of Jarvis would explain at Ace Comic-Con a few years back, the Brit had just walked out of a particularly demoralizing meeting with a producer a few moments before the director got in touch. Simply put, said producer claimed that his career was over, that it was done and that he should pack his bags and go home. Defiantly though, the actor told that person to mind your effing manners before his legs eventually gave way as he reached the sidewalk on Sunset. And just as the thought of wow, maybe my career's over washed over him, a number Bettany didn't recognize popped up on his phone, and Whedon soon delivered the news that he'd like him to play Viz in the MCU. And the rest was Marvel Cinematic history. Number 4, Scarlett Johansson thought her career was over after being hyper-sexualized. Black Widow actor Scarlett Johansson also went through a period in her life when she felt as though her career was done. For an entirely different reason than her Avenger co-star Paul Bettany though. As the actor would explain on Dax Shepard's Armchair Expert podcast, after first making a name for herself at a rather young age, it soon became clear to Johansson that she'd become objectified and pigeonholed to the point where she wasn't being offered the sort of parts that she really wanted to dive into. Things got to the point where the actor felt as though everybody just assumed she was older and had been acting in the industry for far longer than she actually had, with this then leading to her getting pigeonholed into this weird hypersexualized thing. And as that frustrating reality sank in, the eventual Academy Award nominee admitted to thinking that her career was over, feeling that she'd never get the chance to play anything other than the role she had up to that point. This obviously didn't turn out to be the case, thankfully, and the star would also add that she's thankful that the rising stars of today are allowed the freedom to be far more dynamic than Johansson was earlier in her career. Number 3, Robert Downey Jr. thought he was going to bury himself with Tropic Thunder. On the back of reigniting his career with a game-changing performance as Tony Stark in 2008's Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. was arguably one of the most in-demand actors on planet Earth. So how did the revived star choose to follow up that early MCU entry? With a character and movie that he felt held the potential to undo all of the goodwill that he just generated with his much-loved Marvel outing. Or at least that's how RDJ himself saw it. With the actor eventually noting to LA Times that after agreeing to appear in Tropic Thunder, before Iron Man ultimately went on to be a massive success, he quickly thought, I just buried myself. By playing the role of a white actor trying to portray a black character throughout the comedy, the star understandably worried that he was going to squander any goodwill I have. Far from derailing his career revival in the same year it begun though, his work in Tropic Thunder as Kirk Lazarus actually led to a surprising Oscar nomination for RDJ, and Downey would eventually go on to become one of the highest grossing actors of all time. Number 2, Ryan Reynolds thought he was done after injuring Denzel in Safe House. There was a pretty alarming moment there when Ryan Reynolds genuinely thought he'd headbutted away his chances of ever having a successful career in the business. Jumping back to that time when Reynolds was filming the 2012 action thriller Safe House opposite Denzel Washington, one particular stunt involving the two wrestling in a moving vehicle soon led to Ryan's head colliding with the legendary thespians. In that moment, after connecting with Washington's eye, the star admitted to David Letterman that he thought he was about to be sent home via crematorium. And not only that, the actor also confessed to feeling that both his career and actual pulse were about to cease. Being the pro he is though, Washington laughed off the accident and the pair attempted the sequence once more from the other side to disguise the swelling appearing around his injured eye. But unfortunately for Reynolds, the same thing only went and happened again, this time to the other eye. And on top of Washington soon resembling a rather sore Christmas ornament, the eventual merc with a mouth quite rightly felt like he wanted to die there and then. Can't exactly blame him. Number 1, Colin Farrell thought he'd been found out after Alexander. It's hard to believe there was ever a time when it looked as though Colin Farrell's career was in any serious trouble, but nearly 2 decades before his most recent outstanding year appear on the big screen, one which saw him utterly transform into the Penguin in The Batman and receive a Golden Globe for his work in The Banshees of Inisherin and an Oscar nod as well. The Irish actor admitted to genuinely questioning if he was actually any good at this acting thing. After appearing in what would ultimately go on to become one of the biggest flops of the decade in Alexander, a 23-year-old Farrell was quickly informed that the reviews being sent the 2004 historical epic were not good. Farrell ultimately decided to escape the public eye for a while by taking a trip to a ski resort in Lake Tahoe, but couldn't escape the feeling of being a crap actor and questioned whether he'd just been found out after his initial success in the business. This high-profile disaster couldn't fully derail the star's rise in the end though, and after reconnecting with the version of himself who first walked into an acting class at the age of 17, Farrell was eventually able to produce the sort of work that has since established him as one of the finest performers of his generation. Keeping those fingers crossed for that Oscar, baby. And that's our list. Know of any other exact moments actors thought they were finished? Then let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're at it. Also, if you like this kind of thing, then go and head on over to whatculture.com and find some more fantastic articles just like the one this video you're watching right this second is based on. I've been Gareth from whatculture.com. Thank you as always for watching this lovely video today. Hopefully I'll see your faces very, very soon, but in the meantime, be good to yourself. Bye bye.